All right, good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, August 4th, and let's take a look at the markets. Yesterday was a good day for us, or for me, I should say, and I can kind of show you a little bit what we did. Now, I think I had mentioned in yesterday's analysis, I had put on sort of an overnight trade on MES as we came down here on, um, on Monday. And so I was a little bit underwater as the day sort of opened yesterday around here. And but I had mentioned in my analysis that if we dropped further, I was going to add because ultimately I knew it was a little bit dicey taking the trade around here. If you look at this larger auction, it's right around the point of control. And often when we come down from the top of a balancing area, we go through the point of control and test the bottom of the balancing area. So I kind of knew that was a possibility. But if we were going to break out, we did have this low and then a higher low here. And then if this was going to be another higher low, this seemed like a logical place for it to happen. This is where if we look at the volume of this whole sort of move here, right, all the volume was here. There wasn't really anything down here. So I wasn't sure if price was going to want to make its way down there to test anything out, other than the fact that it is in this larger auction. You can see the bottom of my channel lines up exactly with the low volume node of this larger auction. And so that's kind of, was the sort of debate putting on that trade. So I made sure that I put it on with appropriate position size so that my stop could be under the whole channel, recognizing that price may want to come down and just test the bottom of this thing. And so when the sell-off occurred yesterday morning, down here, I'll show you what I was watching. All right, I took some trades down here yesterday. Let's go to a 1 minute. Just give me a moment to find the place on the chart. Here we go. So this was yesterday morning's sell-off, and price was really working its way down pretty quick. And so when I saw this little consolidation here, this sideways price action that occurred right here, okay, that was an area that I was interested in for taking a short. So I took this short right there, basically. And if you look at the profile, you can see where that was from, right? So there was just this like chunk right in here, right? This chunk of volume. And I think I might have actually taken my trade a little bit earlier than this. I might have entered down here a bit more. But regardless, my stop was over the high and I went for a 1-to-1 risk. And you can see that worked out really nicely. And I had put a note in my chat room as we were sort of making this balancing pattern down here to keep an eye out for a bullish reversal. So the other thing that I did was off of this, this is a divergent bar here. I'm working on a new script and it's actually going to get updated today, but there's a divergent bar right here. And so just buying right off the top of that, that took you back up for a nice little profit as well. So those were some nice trades there. We caught off the bottom. But when I saw that we broke this structure of this high right here, this candle pushed right up through, I went in and I just grabbed some more of that overnight for that overnight position. So I grabbed some more MES. My initial position was 5 contracts. And if you remember, it was taken very near to this main point of control, right? It was off all this consolidation. And so I went in with 5 contracts. And then when we broke this structure and started to head back up from the bottom of the channel, I went in, and because I could have lower risk, because again, my stop was still just under the channel, so I went in with 10 contracts. And so what I did then was I took 5 of them off right around here. So right around as we approached this high volume. So if we look at this right here, you can see there's a bunch of volume right here, and I wanted to get some risk off the table there. So that gave me pretty much 1-to-1 risk reward on the 10 contracts, which was really nice. And then I rode the remainder of it up to whatever the consolidation was. I think it was right about under this main POC. I think I took it up a little bit higher and just took the rest of it off there, again, just because there's like bunches of volume up there that we wanted to get out of the way of. So that was a nice little profitable trade that we took. And again, it just starts with recognizing that we're currently in a trading range. And so, when these sell-offs occur and you have an idea of where support is, rather than panicking and trying to get out of positions, we are jumping into positions. And then again, as price moved back up, I believe it was around here. See the consolidation right here. This is where I took off the second portion of that trade. Let me see if I can get a volume profile on it. So there's a bunch of volume right here. So this little push right here is where I took off the second portion of that trade. So it was basically, I entered a part here, entered more down here, exited the stuff that I entered down here, and then exited the original position up here. So that worked out pretty nicely for me. And I'm glad I did, because even though we pushed a little bit higher, you can see we just barely made it through this consolidation. And then we're pulling back because we had some earnings last night. Like I know Clorox earnings weren't too great, and then the jobless numbers, or the payroll numbers rather, this morning were a little bit of a miss from estimates. And so, we're just back into this, again, this big old balancing area, right? This is what we're doing. We are balancing right now. And as long as we're balancing, you want to buy the extremes, sell the extremes, right? Could have taken this short here, but I do think eventually we're going to resume our bullish momentum. Maybe not. We'll see. There's so much stuff going on today with the Delta variant and everything else, but we'll just kind of take it one day at a time. But I am leaning more in my swing trades, my overnight trades. I'm leaning more on the bullish side of things. I haven't been taking the short end of these, although a lot of them would have worked out. Like there's consolidation here. You could have shorted this consolidation up here. So a lot of these shorts would have worked out, but I'm shorting a lot intraday. I'm just not shorting a lot overnight because I'm just sort of like waiting for the day that we kind of burst out of this balancing period. But the market's been very sideways. I mean, ultimately, we had all that sideways action, even through like April and, July and all this. Like it's just been like these sort of repeated balancing areas, right? So we had this big long sideways thing that was from April all the way to June. And then we kind of came up and we kind of went sideways again and then dipped down and then back up and now sideways again. It kind of just reminds me a lot of this, right? Like a little bit sideways, dip down, back up, sideways, dip a little bit, and then eventually go. So it's just sort of a matter of like, are we going to get another big dip like we did here? Like we got this kind of pull down, right? Or is that going to happen again? So like what I mean is, we had this up, sideways, big dip, back up, sideways, littler dip, back up. Now we're higher, sideways, dip, back up. And now we're going to do the same thing, like another like kind of little dip and then push higher, so just sort of keeping an eye out for that stuff on the bigger picture. And I've got a lot of lines in here. And the reason for most of these lines is just based on this balancing area, because there's been several sort of high volume and low volume nodes within there, and those give us little like targets. Like this is a low volume node, these purple lines, low volume node, and this was a high volume node. This is high volume. That's what that red line there is off of. This one here, I might be able to remove at this point. Let's take a look. What's this other line here off of? So if we pull, whoop, that's not what I want. Let's get out of that drawing tool. Let's pull this whole thing back and just take a look. Yeah, so there was like a little bit of a high volume thing here, but we can see that's really shifted quite a bit. And it's really more like this now. And then this low volume, right? Low volume there. So that's kind of, again, the bottom of that channel. So we can see when we look at this whole thing, right? You've got this low volume and then this like larger auction that starts around here. That's what that node is. That line is there. And then low volume. So it's like low volume, high volume, low volume, high volume. This little purple line here, I don't think I need anymore. I think this was like a gap fill kind of line. And then this was another sort of low volume area before that's just not really relevant anymore, right? If we look at this whole thing, I mean, if we go on the lower time frame, you might see some relevance there. Right, so we're talking about this upper kind of low volume thing here. You can see that little bit of low volume, but that's all starting to fill in. Like this was much more pronounced, this little extra node here. And same with this one, it was much more pronounced. And so these things are kind of filling in and giving us more of our standard distribution that we would expect in a balancing period. And so that's sort of that, guys. And just kind of looking at the sort of movement as a whole here, if we bring this back over to kind of give us a feel for what to expect today, you know, we had some of these little consolidations here, like this one we're sort of running into right now. And I don't know if these are going to hold with this kind of momentum. So, like this kind of volume node here, so running us right into that lower volume chunk. If we get through that lower volume chunk, we're just going to go right to this main point of control. If we stay above it, we might hover around here and kind of fill in more of that low volume area stuff. But there's not a lot. I mean, this was a huge push, so we could come down here and reverse off of this. This is like the only major area to be interested in of this whole thing, right? Is this volume down here. Like there's this here that we're running into right now, but it is, we'll see if that low holds. Basically, that's what we kind of need to see, is like, is this low going to hold? Otherwise, we're probably going to go through the point of control, and then at that point, I would assume that we test some of these lower areas. There's a bunch of volume here, again, right at this low volume node that I certainly want to be aware of. And, that would be an area where a potential long, potential bullish reversal, looking for something off of this kind of thing right here, and it's kind of a big stop on that, but basically we would just be targeting back to the point of control. So it's just, are we going to test all the way down to the lower end of this again? I think if we come down to the lower end of this channel again, there's a decent probability we go through it and we get a deeper pullback. If we do get a deeper pullback, by the way, we'd look at pulling back to this consolidation. So this area around 43.53-ish, right? 43.53. That would be, if we're going to blow through, I would expect a little bit of support to be found there. And then maybe even a little bit more support down at 43.42. But then after that, there actually isn't much. Like there's this volume down here that we could be aware of. And then nothing until we start to get down into these levels. So this is just little stuff to be aware of. This is this other sort of support area. So it's just a matter of like what's going to hold. Honestly, I would probably be hesitant to take a long off of this level. I might get out of shorts, but I'd be a little bit hesitant because there's this other consolidation so close to it. And in my experience, a lot of times when that happens, we go to the lower one, especially because this one's actually a little bit more pronounced. If we actually adjust our profile here, and just kind of take into consideration those things. I mean, this is a little bit higher volume just on that one node, but I think as a whole, this is a nicer area. Like I'd be more interested in taking a trade off of this than I would off of that upper one. So that is right around the 43.23 area. If we're going to continue to the downside, I'd be pretty interested in that area to see if that holds. And gives us that little bit of a deeper pullback that's not quite as deep as this one, and then maybe we resume our bullish momentum from there, because there's going to be a ton of stops under this thing. That's why if this comes down again to the bottom of this channel, I don't know that I'd go so aggressively long like I did yesterday. I think that would be a little bit dicey. So there's a chance of a long here at this 43.82, sort of on the lower portion of this channel, if we're going to stay within it and then maybe resume bullish momentum from there. But otherwise, yeah, I just, we've tested this once. We came down kind of near it. We tested it again. And the fact that we tested this and then couldn't make a new high, like that's what makes me, even more concerned that if we come down to this again, there's a decent probability that we just sort of push right through it. I think that would be a very realistic expectation at that point. So just be aware of that, guys, if you're trading. This worked. It worked here, it worked here, it worked here. I don't know how many more times that's going to work. So just exert some caution, and then look at these other areas, this 53 area and then the 23 area. I'd be looking at those areas for some, just continued support to see where the market's going to kind of fall to and find some reversal. So I'm glad that I'm out of my MES overnight positions because you can see we're pulling back, and it's just a matter now where we pull back to. Do we come back and just balance? Are we going to gyrate around that point of control? You know, we have to kind of wait and see. Let's just take a look really quickly at the session volume. So this is yesterday. Obviously, we had a pretty broad range yesterday. So we came all the way down, all the way up. Value is sort of huge here, and we're definitely going to open within value. And we've already sort of gone through the POC. So a lot of times we talk about how if we open within the previous day's value area, that it's pretty common for us to test the previous day's POC. But the fact that we were above it in the early morning, and then we already kind of blew through it. I'm not going to use that as a trade, right? Like I'm not going to be looking to target that anymore. I'm going to basically play today by ear and just kind of see what the market gives me. I'm up really nicely this week right now, so I'm going to take it slow today and just make sure I maintain and hold on to the profits that I have, because I'm up. I'd be happy actually. Like I could end my week right now and be pretty happy with the profits that I have. So I'm going to just kind of, like I said, play it by ear, take it slow. If you want to trade with us, just go to dpmtrades.com, click on community. You can find a link to our Discord channel there. We do have a free like sort of entrance level to our Discord group, and that's where I recommend people start. I've talked about in the past, I don't run the group for profit. I run the group because I like having the community. I like having people to talk to while I trade, and I enjoy teaching and coaching. It's what my whole career has been, even prior to being a trader, was coaching other professionals. And so you can join us there, and we'd be happy to have you, especially on a day like today where it's hard to have like sort of specific levels. We just, like I said, need to kind of play things by ear and just see what the market gives us. We're right in this consolidation right now, and yeah, we'll see what we get, guys. All right, I'm going to sign off, and if you join us in the chat room, I'll see you there. Otherwise, I will check in with you tomorrow.